All right, so we are going to pick up where we left off on Sololearn on HTML basics. And the last thing we did was tables, so we're going to move on to links. So links you do with the A tag, and in order to add a link, just throw a link in here. Let's do H reference, and you can either add the full URL to another site, such as .org. So you need like the HTTPS and all that stuff. So you can add that. And then in between your A tags, whatever text, you want them to be able to click on is what you put in between your A tags. So from the start of your A tags with your H reference or where it goes to, and then so you refresh this, and click on Purple Heart, it takes us to the Purple Heart website. But you don't always want to have your link move the browser you're currently on. I don't know if they talk about this. Let's see if they talk about it on Sololearn. Yeah, target blank. Okay, cool. So you don't always want it to open in the same browser window you're using, because then the page you're on is gone unless you like click back. But if you add target goals underscore blank, now let's refresh it and I save it. Yeah. So now when we click it, of course it didn't update. I might have to clear my cache. I type it wrong. Oh, tag it, target. So now it leaves your current set page open and it just opens it in a different browser window. So let's see if it covers anything. They cover anything else? That's all they're talking about. Okay, I'm not covering the blog stuff. So, okay, let's talk about inline and block elements. So you've got your H1 form, stuff like that, and it's going to add like a break to whatever you're doing, like your paragraph, adds a break. But this stuff, like your images and your A tags, stuff like that, it's not gonna go down a line. So like you can like with your image or like with your text, like we could write like something like go to Purple Heart website or something, right? And then it's still all on the same line. It's not going to do a break. And so that's what they're, as opposed to like if you had, you know, multiple paragraphs, we've already covered, I'm not going to cover that again, you know, it adds different lines. So close some of these. And I start to talk about div elements. Div elements are super important once you get to CSS. You're going to use like divs for everything to divide the different content you're wanting to work with. So this is adding some CSS in here. You'll learn a lot more about CSS later, but let's go ahead and just add that in there. And again, I said this before, but you should be doing this stuff and following along, doing it yourself, trying all this out so you see how it works and executes on your actual browser. So div. You always want to close your div. And then, I don't know, say div. And let's see, what are they doing in this? They're doing background color. All right. So you'll learn CSS later. You'll learn CSS later, but with anytime you want to do CSS, you can do inline CSS where you add it into the div. Later, you'll learn about doing it in its own style sheet, its own separate file, which is how you'll usually do stuff. But this is just one of the ways to add CSS. And anytime you're doing CSS, it's in this format. So you want to add CSS, you add style, and then it's always what you're trying to do. Like you're doing like the background color, and and then you add a colon, and then you know we're gonna make the background color green. And then anytime you end something you're doing on CSS, you add the semicolon, and then you can add more CSS. So like let's add in here color, and the color is going to be the white. So the background color will be green, and then the color will be white for the stuff in here. And and they're adding some padding too. Okay. Padding 20 pixels. So each of those is broken up by the colon, and then you can add, more CSS for that element. And I'll show you how to do the other types of ways to add in CSS once we get to that section. So we've got the font color. You just put color and it does the font color is white and then the background's green. They threw some paragraphs in there, but I don't need to. I don't want to add all that. It's fine. So okay, now they're talking about span. So span is more for like part of what you're trying to style without trying to do a break or do like the whole element that way, like you're like writing out a sentence or something, and like just one word you want to style different or whatnot, when you usually use the span tag. So let's go ahead and remember we talked about inheritance. So it's got this is the, like, for the stuff in this div, it's got everything in here is inheriting what this style is, right? But now let's go ahead and add is what we did. Let's go ahead and throw a span tag. And then let's go ahead and just change. So they're changing it to red. All right. So then, we add the style. We're wanting to add the style. Oh, and anything, you have to put everything in quotes. I'm sure you see that, but just make sure you add everything into quotes that you're doing. So the whole thing inherits the from the parent of the parent div. It's all in the div. And if there was like if we had another div here, right? And we're adding some style, or if we had it in our style sheet or whatnot, anything that is not covered, that's not currently at a default or whatever. So like if we had let's just do this. So basically, whatever the closest one, so like the closest one to this is, this span is red, right? Then when it goes up a level, it's saying the color is white, right? If it goes up a level and we had, style, right? Well, it's already specified. Throw a closing div. Oops. Sorry. So this is all already specified. So it's not gonna affect anything. But if we had something not in this div, well, that doesn't really, but okay, let's say we get rid of this one, right? Now it's going to inherit from the further up div. So basically, that's that's inheritance, and it's not talking about it there, but just wanted to
Shannon, here's your reminder.
Cover that.
Take my vitamin D pill.
So anyway, let's see if it talks about anything else. Okay, and these are just other elements. So an important thing, is a script element. we'll get, and if you need to use any of the others, you know, here's the other stuff. But script is, so there, well, I don't want to cover it too much because this isn't CSS, but you can also add a script, a style, or a script tag, or you'll learn about script in JavaScript. So if you add a script tag, then you can add your JavaScript stuff. That's probably what you're gonna, the element you'll, you know, use the most, you know, and just add, you know, add the tag script. And then any JavaScript you're adding, you'll go into that, but we'll cover that, you know, once you get to JavaScript. Links, block, forms are super important. You use these all the time. Don't worry about trying to add, I mean, if you want with your site, you can try and add the form now. You're not going to actually be able to use it until later, but if, you know, once you learn Python and is when you're really going to start to use forms, because then, you know, you send post data and then process it and like actually do something with it. But I mean, I'll show you how the forms work for now, and then you can use them more later. So first thing you have to, when you're creating a form, first thing you have to specify is the method that you want to send the info. So we always send it via post. You can use get. So the difference between get and post. So get is like when you first go to a web page, you know, that's your get page. That's the page that you just naturally land on, and you just get the information that's from that web page. The post section of the page is if you're sending any information to that page, and you can send information to the page via get. Like anytime you see, you know, like the slash, like question mark, and then, you know, whatever equals whatever, like this is doing, you know, state equals blah blah blah, and you can send get information that way. But we don't do that unless you absolutely have to, because it's not secure. It, you know, it's not the secure best way to do it, having, you know, all the info in the URL. If you send it via post, it's not visible there. So we use post. So like right now, see, we're on the get section of the main page. Now if we add post and then we add action, so the action is where you're sending it to, and we're just going to send it to this page, the main page, which is, you know, just slash. If or actually, you know what, let's send it to the test page, whatever, to slash test. So now we're going to have to actually build a get section for the, or sorry, a post section for the test. So let's just copy this, change this to post. Get rid of all this. We'll make a quick little HTML. So if you had triple quote, if you had 3 double quotes and 3 double quotes, then you can add, you know, more text on multiple lines. But anyway, so let's just create a quick little HTML page. So when you're creating your HTML page, everything has to be in the HTML tag. And then I have your head tag. I'm not going to add anything to the head tag. And then your body tag. And I'm apprehensive about throwing too much at you guys right now. But whatever, I'll just teach you this stuff since we're dealing with forms. Don't feel like you need to fully understand this. For now, you can just copy what I'm doing. Like you'll learn it more when you get to Python. But so let's just create a form that says, so first let's close our form. And then let's create an input tag. And when you're creating your input tag, you need to name, so you always, whatever you're naming your variable for that you're sending, so that you name it that, so that you know what name to call to retrieve it. And you'll see what I'm talking about in a second. So let's just name it users input, whatever. And so before that, let's put type equals text. And you'll learn there's all sorts of different kinds. Like the type could be email if you want to get their email. The type could be password if you want it to get their password. And then if you do like password, it, like when they type, little dots come up. There's all sorts of different input types. Again, don't feel like you need to know all this right now because you're not going to be working with forms until later, but we'll just go ahead and go over it. So that's all you need for your input. Then the user will give you the input. And then anytime you do a form, you always have to add the input type equals submit. And if you want to change the name, like by default, if you just add input type submit, watch, it'll come up with just submit as the button option, right? But if you want to rename it, so you change value equals, I don't know, send input. Whatever you change the value to is what is going to be listed on this button right here. So, all right, so this name right here is this is just, I just made that name up. I could call it whatever I want, right? I'm just calling it users input. I could call it Brandon's input, or I mean, I don't have to say input. I could call it anything I want because then the page I send it to, so I'm sending it to this post page, right? Is to then get that info, you then do equals self request, because you're sending a post request dot get Brandon's input, because that's what it's named. So then when you send it to this page, then it's going to get whatever the user types, and it's going to save it in this variable, which again, you'll learn when you get to Python. Don't feel you need to understand all this right now, but it's going to save it in this. And then and then to display this is also then using Python dot format. We're going to say Brandon's input. So then to add, so you said, and then do the squiggly brackets for wherever you want to insert your text into it, and you do dot format. Yeah, Brandon's input equals Brandon's input, because what it's actually doing is it's getting the user's typing the info here, it sends it to this page, it gets it, stores it in this variable, and then it goes and so I've created this spot where I want to insert the text by doing the squiggly text and naming it something, but I could call this whatever I wanted. Probably shouldn't be going over explaining this, because again, you don't need to understand this right now, but users input, right? So whatever I call this is what it's actually equaling. But I again, I could call that whatever I wanted. But anyway, so then if we say, let's say, programming is fun. Said none. Hold on. The heck? Why is it doing that? Hold on. Oh, okay. I guess I just had to refresh my browser. But anyway, so say programming is fun. And you said programming is fun. So yeah, that's all you need to do to, send input from one page to another. And then later, we'll get into Python and SQL and everything where you'd like save the input to the database and all that stuff. But yeah, that's how forms work. So let's see what else they talk about. Yeah, but yeah, so like I'm adding, since when you're on your own website, you can just add like /test and it'll, route you to whatever, manages your /test page, right? So like I can go to the /test page, and it's the get section is taking me to, well, it's actually reading the index HTML file that we have saved there. So, but if you're posting it, then it sends it to the post page. If you're sending to a web page that's not your web page, if you're posting info, which generally you're not going to post info to another person's web page, but you would just add the full URL instead of just, /test. But anyway. Yeah, and these and there's so much. I'm not going to cover everything with forms. There's so much different stuff. Like the radio just does these little, buttons. So we'll cover what they cover. But there's all sorts. Like you can do checkboxes. You can do, yeah. Here, actually, I'll go to. This is a great web page. W3 Schools, if you ever want to reference anything. But yeah, here they'll cover a whole bunch of different, different types. There's radio, checkboxes, all sorts of different stuff. And there's more attributes if you go to, if you just search W3 Schools. It's got like all sorts of cool stuff for referencing. But let's see, form attribute. Yeah, if you check form attributes, it's got like other information about forms and stuff, and form elements even more, like the different things like text area, like if you want them to be able to write a whole bunch of text and like expand the text box and stuff talks about all that right here, or in input types like I was talking about, radio, passwords, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, but anyway, let's get back to this. Okay, so and if you want to, here, hold on. So if you want to add text, so like you see right here, they added, the break for, and then added text. I mean, you can add a break, or like if you want it in front or whatnot, or just on the same line, you can just, say female. Copy this. Here's where we should add the break. Male. So when you add the value is what's going to get sent if you're using like a checkbox or radio or something. So let's go back to the home page because it sent us to the test page. So let's add a break before that too. So then like they can check, male or female. What you put, the text you put here is just, what they'll see, because you're just writing text just like as if you would write it anywhere in the body section. It's not what actually gets sent. What gets sent is the value. But so since we've got the radio named gender for both, only what is picked is what's gonna is the value that's gonna get sent, right? So all we need to do, just like we got the name, Brandon's input for this, we'll get gender. And then, so. Right in there. Gender is, and then, so we're inserting gender. I'm just using the same names just to keep it simple, but again, like you could name this something different, and then just whatever that's named is what this equals section has to be, and then this is just referencing that. But anyway, if you just keep it all the same, then it's easy to track too. So is Brandon. I don't know if I refreshed it. Yeah. And I just take, up here still sending the text that I'm sending, in this text box, and then it's taken since I had the male selected. But if I went back and selected female, it's sending what you have for the value right here is what's going to get sent. So all right. And yeah, I already covered the submit button, and they didn't cover, but whatever you name the value there is what it gets changed to. The button name gets changed to. Okay, this is just a blog section. I'm not going to cover that. Okay, so this is just talking about the hex colors. And you use this more in CSS when you're specifying colors, but if you want to do your background color or your text color or whatnot, so like instead of putting green, so like let's pick, and here if you want to know the, so if we do go to Google, Hex HTML, just Google it, and there's plenty of stuff out there that'll tell you like the exact hex code color that you want. So like let's make it like we'll make it this. Oops. And so now instead of being the background color green, it's this whatever this hex code color is, and like you can adjust the stuff to find out. But you have to add the they call it hashtag now. I'll always call it like £. But anyway, you have to add the hashtag or £, and then whatever your hex code color is. And you can do it with font color too. So Okay. I'm not even going to go over this because frame isn't even used in HTML5. We're just going to be using HTML5. So you're not really going to use frame. So don't worry about, don't really worry about this. So yeah. All right, so the last things that are left is just the blog project and the module quiz. And again, I'm not going to just give away answers to the module quiz. And this is just talking about, putting everything together. And you should have been putting everything together as we went along, adding everything. But anyway, so that is it for HTML basics. So next I'll be covering, I won't be covering the challenges because that's just the quiz part. So next we'll be covering HTML5 in the next video. So see you then.